friendship, lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, this is Pearl, and we are back again for another Conversations with Pearl. And I'm excited because you know that here with Women Successful Living, we love empowering women to create really great relationships. And it's so important to have those true friends. And so today we're going to talk a lot about having true friends and really how you go about collecting them. So I'm excited because our special guest today is Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker, and she has mastered the art of making and keeping friends at an early age. Her magnetism pulls all kinds of acquaintances closer, puts strangers at ease, and she just loves to help engage all types of people. So even if you're listening to this and you're not a female, you're going to really get a lot out of this today, because in our conversation, we're going to talk about her new book that's coming out called Collecting True Friends. Was divinely inspired to help others learn proven methods of creating and developing great quality relationships. And if you've been listening to me over the past few weeks, you know my story about divorcing a friend after a 4-year truly great friendship. So I'm excited about today's session. I'm excited about this conversation. And I want to welcome Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker. Welcome to Conversations with Pearl. How are you today?
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Pearl. And I love the title of your podcast, Conversations with Pearl. It's like, oh, let's go.
Yes, I love just to sit here and have real conversations. You know, it's so important. And I love that your new book is like the right time, especially for me. And I'm sure many of us, you know, we've gone through this last year of COVID where we've been isolated. So we really had to rely on those friendships. And then even when you come through those friendships, as you heard me say, my really close friend was living with me for about 6 months, and coming through that and realizing it was just a narcissist friendship, and I had to divorce that friendship. And once I pulled through it and I saw the energy that was keeping me back from it, I had a conversation with a friend. I'm like, you know, what is the deal? Why can't people just be real and be true, right? So when I met you on Clubhouse and you talked about this book that's kicking off, I believe it's launching today, right?
Yes, in celebration of International Friendship Day. So we are launching Collecting True Friends.
Awesome. And International Friendship Day. Okay, so everybody listen, got to reach out. I mean, if you're on Clubhouse, I mean, international, let's talk about that, right? I've met so many amazing friends, and that's how you and I met, was through Clubhouse. Yes. So tell us about the book. Tell us about you. What led you to the path of writing this book and why this book was needed?
Oh, that's great questions. This is a divine inspired book. This is just not Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker's book. This has been divinely inspired, and it came from decades of me observing what was going on with friendships. And back to your person that was a good friend and then it didn't work out, I would throw this out immediately to your listeners, and that is, there are some friendships that sadly have expiration dates. So just like if you look in your pantry, and we cover this in the book, there's chapter 3 or 4, I think it is, talks about what's in your pantry of friends. So it's a normal part. There's ebbs and flows in our relationships. So when I saw what was going on in a busy working woman's life, and I was that person, 60 hours a week, raising 3 daughters, keeping my marriage thriving, trying to be a daughter, trying to help my neighbors, community, you know, the whole list, blah, 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 right? And what I realized is it had great energy required to keep friendships. And if you're going to be a friend, you also need to know what in return you should ask of your friends. So that was where the book, the impetus, and the Collecting Pearl came in, because I was actually trying to get my friends together because there were so many of them. And I was like, look, I am crazy busy. Can we just do float time? And so we arranged one of the parties, house to have a party at their pool. And I said, just everybody bring a dish. They brought a dish and we just showed up, and it was about 8 or 9 women. And it was interesting because when you have a name like Elizabeth, everybody, Pearl, says, well, how did you meet Liz? How did you meet Lisa? How did you meet Elizabeth? So everybody called me different names because they'd known me through different timelines. And then that's when they all laughed after they told how that I had introduced myself and insisted to be friends. And then somebody threw out there, well, that's what she does. She collects friends. So that's what the impetus of the book title came. And then when I realized it needs to be deeper than that, when it was divinely inspired, it needs to be collecting true friends. Because even back when we were 5 years old, Pearl, you remember when the kids would do something and you'd be like, well, that's my best friend, or this is my good friend, or somebody would do something that wasn't quite right or was great. And they'd say, he's a true friend, or she's not a true friend. And you knew what a true friend was. We've known our whole lives. So the book is a way to take a look and pause what you're doing, make sure you're worthy. So the subtitle is Be Worthy of Those of the Time and Devotion, because friendships take devotion. It takes your time, it takes devotion. And when you show up that way, and then also in the book goes through how to do that, in return, what happens is we become a magnet. And I love the word magnet. Some people don't like magnet, but to me, that's what the whole thing with magnetism is. Remember those actors or actresses we used to watch on TV and we go, wow, they are really magnetic.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, so like collecting those true friends. You brought me through when I was a kid up through today and, in our adult life. And, and it's really important too, like you said, that they're ebb and flow, right? That they're meant to be here for a certain period of time in some cases. And what's the lesson, right? And I often talk about, we have goals, we have visions, we got to climb that path to get there. So I always like say, it's like picture a mountain. You're going up the mountain, you got to stop at the rock. Don't rush up the mountain, right? Just kind of stop and look back and say, what have I learned? And what do I have to do to get to the top of the mountain, right? And sometimes we have to learn that friend, you know what? They're here for a reason. The season's over. What did I learn from that friend? And what can I take going forward for friendships, right? And then I love too what you said too about, we also have to set, I believe around boundaries. I was talking with somebody yesterday who was sitting with a friend and was sharing with that friend how they were feeling about a situation. And the friend just like, okay, the conversation's done, and like left. And she sat back going, aren't friends supposed to share how we feel with one another? And, and a lot of times what I've shared is that what can happen is there's something happening in that friend's life that we don't know. And so they're not used to having that receptive of discussion about how we feel, right? So sometimes sometimes we have to look and say, maybe that's not a friend I should collect. Maybe that becomes that acquaintance, right? That I get, they're an acquaintance or not somebody that needs to be in that circle. And, I love that how you shared about, collecting true friends. Like we have friends, but who's our true friend, right? And for me, one of the lessons I learned with divorcing my recent friend was like, okay, who am I letting in my life? Because maybe I'm letting them in too quickly, right? So talk about that, like how, when you're collecting friends, is there a process that you should like do a check and evaluate? I mean, nothing's perfect.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely. And that's early on in the book. So we talk about, what's in your circles right now, what should be in your circle. And then because the book is a guidebook, and I encourage everybody to buy it with a highlighter in your other hand. Read this thing and highlight the things that are juicy, that sing out to you, because what you're going to want to do is go back and then say, okay, how did I do? Because after each chapter, Pearl, is a pondering pause. And those are where the questions get real. It's like, okay, this is what we've covered in a fun way. I like to put stories in there to illustrate, because I think as women, we all learn better from stories of like the, oh no, she didn't moment, or, oh, that's so thoughtful moment. I would have never thought of that. So there's a lot of stories in there. But to answer your question, one of the easiest ways for us to figure out if I should move quicker with this person or let this person get closer to me is, do they align with our values? Do they align with our qualities? Do they align with our non-negotiables? And here's the biggest thing that I've learned, because I also teach professional networking. I teach people how to build referrals and sales. And when you build a referral network in your business, you have to really make sure that those people that you are referring back, that you trust them. And you also have to assess them. So in professional networking, and that's the growth networking side of my business, that's where I had to teach people. I'm like, hey, you need to vet them out and they have to align with your values. Well, if you look on the personal side, Pearl, it's the same thing. But I see more and more folks that we don't know what we stand for. And we have to be really crystal clear. So some of the exercise in the book, and it's not exercise like weightlifting, but it's like mental exercise, and put it down on a piece of paper, as I ask the reader, commit to, here's some things that you hold, that these are your non-negotiables. Like, for example, I'm a pet lover. It's like, okay, so nobody can be mean to animals with me. I am of faith. Okay, so this is what I believe in. I am a person who loves to give. I like to travel. I am devoted to my family. So these are my non-negotiables. They may not be what somebody else's non-negotiables are, but when we know what our qualities and values are, then all of a sudden, then we can see somebody in front of us. Like when you and I talked a few moments earlier, I went, "Ooh, she's fun." That's one of my non-negotiables. Truth is another one. I like people that are very candid, but I also require someone with a filter. So, and there's a whole chapter in there on just keeping it real doesn't mean being rude. So
I love that you said that filter too. And I love,
it's a filter. So there's boundaries, but there's also, Pearl, there's a moment where, like, with the person was like, well, I'm out of here. Perhaps that person would have done better. And that is a good example that's given in the book. There's, for example, what I recommend to people is, before we just walk up to someone and just say, hey, blah, and we spit it all out like a frog, right? What we say is, we say, Pearl, can I talk to you about something that's been heavy on my heart? Do you have a moment to listen to me? I'm hurting right now, and I need someone I can confide with. Is it okay if I talk to you? And then all of a sudden it changes the person. And then, because sometimes you'll find out somebody will say, I'm not comfortable getting that close, or I don't have time for that now. Can I call you tonight on my way home when we're private? Because I don't want anybody to overhear. But sometimes when we're ready emotionally, and then we just kind of jump it out there with somebody, the other person's not. So it could have been that, or it could have also been that the person said, hey, I got to go. It could be she came from a family where it's like, we don't talk personal stuff. And she's not the person that you put on your list of, like, okay, our values align, but you know what? I can't count on her when it's difficult. She's what I call a fair weather friend. If everything's good and happy, she'll be there. But if I'm sad, depressed, or something bad's going on in my life, I can't call on her.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And that's sort of what we talked about. And, it's funny what you said about filter too, because I realized at that friendship that I realized she never really had a filter, and I allowed it. Like, I accepted it. And it was part of my values that, I filter myself because I want to be, okay, before I let it come out, let me think about what I'm going to say and make sure that it's appropriate. And if I don't feel like I can do something appropriately share, then I just need to button my mouth, right? And so I love that you share that. And so I love too that in the book, I love books that at the end have you take a pause and think about what you just read, because oftentimes I think authors miss that part of that process. And I love that you said, like, highlight. Like, I'm doing a book right now with our Shira League, and it has a workbook with it. And I'm like, okay, so this chapter is really intense. So we're going to, instead of just taking it 1 week at a time, we're making this chapter a month, because it's like, so I love that you're doing that, because you can actually spend some time sitting in that and really pondering is so important, so that you understand what Elizabeth, the author, was trying to teach us. Right. So
That's
I love that. Huh?
Brilliant. And actually, you just gave me an idea. That's a brilliant way for me to work with women. Is like, we can take the book chapter by chapter and then break it down more. That's, wow, Pearl. Like, woo!
I'm glad I can help. That's what this is all about.
Yay! Today, jumping out there.
I love that. So tell us, so where do you go from here with the book? So let me ask you this question. So I'm going to go pick up your book, and I already know a couple people I'm going to share your book with, especially now that we're talking even deeper in the book. But I'm looking to, I think about that woman that's listening, and she's always, pours her heart out first, right? And so she realizes, after listening to this and reading your book, that maybe some of the friends she has in that circle are not friends she should be collecting. What are some of the things that she can do to start? I don't want to say, I have a great friend, her name is Georgie Franks. She talks about, shedding, like shedding the things you need to shed, whether it's relationships, whether it's, whatever it might be, pick a different area of your life. So if you think about it in that respect, like how does somebody go, I need to shed, after reading this amazing book, some of these friendships that I thought were friendships that might be fair weather. How do they move from the process of being possibly close to that friend and then moving to, I need to make it an acquaintance friendship?
So beautifully said, beautifully said. And we cover that in great detail. Awareness and discernment are something that I've woven, those two, I call them their super skills, and I've woven it throughout the book. And with the pondering pauses, it starts becoming more evident to you, like, okay, wow, so who are the people that I really want to be moving forward with? And then, like you said, the word shedding. What I believe is the easiest way to do that is relationships take time and consistency. And when we don't give them our time, which is our energy, things will start fading. So I'm an advocate of, if you have something where somebody is directly doing something and you want them to do something different, if you have a very deep relationship and you don't have to have known somebody for decades, but say, for example, you've known someone for a couple of years, and then there's something that's just not residing with them. And I've had that. There's actually a chapter in there on how to speak your truth, because nicety is actually something that's hurt women over the years. We have been taught to be nice for so long that don't say that, that's rude, you shouldn't say that, right? That what's happened is that we've lost our ability to then also say, hey, Julie, can I talk to you about something? We're dear friends, but this, when you do that, this really bothers me, or I'm just not comfortable with that. Or the other day when we were out and you treated the waiter like that, that's not something. Or I noticed that when I asked you and then you couldn't even be there for me. Okay. So when we can have those conversations, but if we have tried that and the person just puts up the wall and then everything is like, hey, well then you should have, and they give us the should'ves and should'ves, then we kind of know that that's when they don't get our energy and our time and consistency. And eventually the relationship will start fading on its own. But I don't recommend anybody just immediately jump in and just say, that's it, I'm done. Because you can't do that, in my opinion, until we really are frank with where our values, where are our qualities, what are our not negotiables, because we are not the same women and men that we were 20 years ago. We have evolved. And just because somebody's been our friend that long, it's like, well, are they still good for us? So my question back to you, Pearl, would be to ask the listeners, if they're spending time with someone and they still feel great after spending time with them, then maybe they don't need to shed, but they just need to say, hey, look, like I had to do when I was starting my business. Hey, I'm going to leave the corporate world. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I want us to stay in touch, but my life's going to be really different. I hope you can come on that journey with me, because I value you. I value your friendship. Those friends that I had that conversation with, they learned that I was getting in all sorts of stuff and they were supportive, versus there were some friends that said, well, I don't believe in what you're doing. And why are you leaving corporate? And it's safe here. And I didn't continue to get to see those people. So that shedded themselves natural. It was like a natural selection. Does that help?
Yeah, no, it definitely helps. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about the situation with my friend, because I kind of was like, you talk about values. I was kind of letting those values like just kind of tear away, right? I wasn't paying attention. And then because I wanted to be helpful to that person in the situation they had, I let that helpfulness like overbear really where I lined up at, right? So I let it shadow where my values were. And then as we were going through things and those values that I had, it was kept, chopping away, even with saying, hey, I need some time, let's talk. That didn't resonate. They weren't respectful of that. And when it came down to the talking part, it was like, well, this block going on. Yeah, they don't want to hear what I have to share. So it was definitely an eye opener. And then the actions after, as they came, I was like, wow, those are things that truly go against my values. And I can't believe I didn't see it. Right.
Because we're nice. We're being nice.
Right.
Because don't think that, don't say that, be nice. Now, guys, guys aren't like that. Guys, they didn't tell boys and stuff.
Okay, I
that.
have a theory about that. So got a funny story. So when I first started my business, this is going to be funny. And this is how this goes. Sometimes we just go off this way. I used to concentrate just on weight loss. And I wanted to go create this t-shirt. I had this 5-pound fat blob that I used to show to my clients. I was like, I want to be a strong fat blobs, right? So I go to this t-shirt place. Let's create this t-shirt. So I want to take the fat blob. So we put the fat blob on the thing and we put like this kind of before emojis were emojis, kind of this emoji looking strong guy, right? And so I'm like, oh, I love it. It looks awesome, right? And we talked, I can't remember what the slogan was. So I had to go pick up my son at football practice. I'm like, hey, Matt, look at this, what I just created. And he looked at me, goes, are you putting that on a shirt? I'm like, yeah, isn't it cool? He's like, Ma, it looks like a man's body part. So women that are listening, listen, it was meant to be the pancreas, okay? With the big, I said, no wonder why women are that we are. Men let it just roll off, right? But us women, we tend to hold on to everything. And I'm like, I figured out why. Not only do we have to have our parts, but we got a pancreas that looks like the man's part in our body too. So we're carrying all that stuff, right? so I didn't do the t-shirt. For those that are listening to the t-shirt,
please.
But I love that you said that too, because men definitely, they just sort of like, when I went through that, my husband's like, just let it go. And I'm like, what do you mean just let it go? It really ticked me off, and it, broke my trust and it broke my values and all that stuff. And I will say that I've moved forward through it. I sat and took lessons from it and realized that those behaviors, like you said, the values I need to pay attention to those because they're there for a reason.
And the other thing that I've seen too is that just because something is our value doesn't mean that we shouldn't update our values. And that's why I love international friends. And I am a huge fan. I'm the Red Hawk on Clubhouse. And that's where you and I met. And I love people with, this morning I was talking to new Scottish friends.
Oh, yay.
And I was in that group this morning. It was like, anything Scottish, come join us. So I was like, okay, well, distant relatives, right?
Right.
And Pearl, when we look at, if somebody talks different, they have an accent, they have a different culture, they were raised differently, they're wherever parts of the country or world they're from, their values can be close to ours, but what we can also learn is that we shouldn't negate them because they don't look like us. And so in the book on the cover, I've got silhouetted guys and gals on there because I have a lot of guy friends. That's another myth that's out there, is that women can't have friends with guys without having a problem. It's like, no, absolutely. That's where your boundaries come in. So
I think sometimes I have better relationships with men friends than I do girlfriends.
There's a chapter in there on man talk, just for that reason, because I've learned from friends. But that's an important thing for your listeners to know too, is that your friends and potential friends are surrounding you every day. It's sometimes though, we look at it because when we see what our values are and what we look and what we look for people that are birds of a feather. And I'm like, forget the birds of a feather. If they're a bird, let's think about what do they stand for and who they are, and then find out if they're a nice person. And that's what I love about Clubhouse, for example, is that we see a picture, but it's their voice. And studies show that tone and inflection, 38% of our communication is carried through that. 55% is carried through body language. So what we're dependent on there is we're dependent on really listening to their tone and inflection, just like with this podcast now.
Right.
And your listeners are going, hey, yeah, she's residing with me, I want to get to know her. And then they'll go to the website. But I want everybody to think about that. It's not the same people that you bring with you on your journey that you collect. And if you're looking for really collecting true friends, then you be more open that that person could look very, very different sizes, shapes, colors, genders, backgrounds, and all of a sudden you could say, wow, I have a big variety of friends. and
Exactly.
people say that about me all the time. And you know what's interesting is when I get them all together, they go, this is really cool. And once somebody said, one of the guys, because guys do man talk, one of the guys said, I already know if you're a friend of Elizabeth, I already know that you're a good person because she vets everybody before she mixes people. And that's in the book too. So
awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. And I love, this is, collecting true friends has just really resonated with me when I heard the title. And because I love true friendships, and I just think it's so powerful. And so tell everybody where they can go find your book.
Oh, yeah. So go to our website, www.collectingtruefriends.com. And the pre-sale orders are starting today in celebration of International Friendship Day. So we're very excited. And then also on Clubhouse, I'm the Red Hawk. And you can find me on Instagram at Growth Networking, GROWTH Networking. It's all one word. And I would love to connect. I mean, you will find I'm just as friendly when you connect with me as that I am here. And that's what it's all about, is how we can meet more great people in our life, right, Pearl? Like I met you. So thank you for bringing me today.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then for the people that are listening and not watching this, her personality is just as much as in person as you are hearing through the audio. So I just love your energy, your personality, and everything. And so I'm excited. We'll make sure we put all those links and everything together when we drop the podcast, which should drop in about pretty soon here. And then I just love this conversation. And everybody, please go out and get the book, because I think it's really important. I think it's a great book for even your young adults, right? Because as they go through those high school days, there's so much high school drama and everything too. So it'd make a great gift to give to your college student that's getting ready to go off to college, so please go and grab that book. It's called Collecting True Friends. So go to collectingtruefriends.com. And again, my name, we're gonna get into the next part. You guys, all my listeners know the next part is a lot of fun. We got a couple minutes here. And that is our betterquestionsbetterlife.com cards. You can go to Better Questions, Better Life. So I've already pre-warned our beautiful guest, Elizabeth, that we're going to shuffle the cards. So she's going to tell me when to stop. So tell me when to stop.
All right, there.
Okay. So her question is, this is a great question for you today. What is my intention? So what is your intention? Share that with us.
That's easy. My intention is to end loneliness for people. Everyone can have amazing true friends in their life. It is doable. And I tell everyone, Pearl, just because you haven't had a life filled with amazing, rich friends that want the best for you and uplift you, it's fixable. There's no age, like you said, whether you're in your 20s, 40s, 60s, we can fix that. So that's my intent. And it's a divine mission that I'm on. And I'm going to playfully leave you with this. I say I'm on a movement to help everybody collect true friends. And that's kind of like the thing. So what a beautiful question. That's my intention.
I love that. It's a great answer. And it's never too late to find a true friend.
It's
never too late. Young or old. I just love that. So you guys have been listening to Conversations with Pearl. And to all of our listeners, I want to remind you, we have our PJ, our 5th annual pajama retreat, which is in September. We're in the mountains of Tennessee. We have 10 spots left, and we also have sponsorships available. So you can go to wsliving.com. Again, wsliving.com. Look under retreats to find about attendees and sponsorships. But you've been listening to Conversations with Pearl and this amazing podcast. And I want to thank you again for being our guest, Elizabeth. And as I always close out the show, I encourage everybody that's listening to remember, you come into this world as a beautiful oyster, a little rough on the outside, but as you open that oyster, there's that beautiful pearl inside. So I want you to go find your inner pearl of greatness. Take care.
That's beautiful.
Hello, sunshine.